Everybody ready? Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm John Quincy. Delighted to be the chair of the Ways and Means Committee for this term. And we're joined today for the first meeting of the regularly scheduled meeting of Ways and Means by council members Yang, Palamisano, Bender, and Johnson. So we are obviously a quorum of this committee and can do our work. I'm going to talk about the first, few items on this agenda of, is it 21 items? 21 items, and the consent agenda. First items are being brought forward by the City Attorney's Office. There are two legal settlements, one for Lacey Brown versus the city and Goff Holdings versus the City of Minneapolis. The second item is a conflict of interest waiver for legal services contract with the law firm of Maslon, Edelman, Borman, and Brand. The Communications Department is bringing forward three items. The first is the utility billing insert for city trees. Then there's a donation of public service announcements on donated broadcast airtime from Comcast Cable. The fifth item on the agenda is a donation of digital billboard display time from donated sign space from Clear Channel Outdoor for the purpose of communicating snow emergency information, something we don't hope we have to use very much of. The City Coordinator's Office is bringing forward an item for the Creative City Challenge Art Competition project. This is authorizing to enter into 5 one-year agreements with Northern Lights .mn, renewable at the city's request for an estimated cost of $150,000 per year for management and artistic programming services for the Creative City Challenge Art Competition. Much of this comes from the Convention Center, I believe. The seventh item on the agenda is from Community Planning and Economic Development Department for the John Biggers Seed Project. There are 2 grants. One is for $150,000 from National Endowment for the Arts Our Town program and a $100,000 grant from the McKnight Foundation for the John Biggers Seed Project. And there's a series of corresponding actions related to the budget and adopting the resolution. The Neighborhood and Community Relations Department is bringing forward an item for the Metropolitan Area Agency on Aging mini grant, accepting a grant award of $8,000 to conduct research through the use of focus groups and approve the appropriation for NCR that led to our development of our Minneapolis for a Lifetime initiative. Finance and Property Services Department is bringing forward an item for barge mooring on Upper River and renovation or remodeling services for fire stations 5 and 7. Then we have some actions referred from other committees. The Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing forward a series of deed applications for their redevelopment grant program, authorizing staff to submit those applications to deed for redevelopment grant programs for the following projects: Brick House Lofts, Broadway Flats, the Cameron, Mosaic East, Seward Friendship Store, and Shapco Printing Redevelopment. Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee was bringing forward a request for an authorization of contract with Tubman in the total amount of $75,000 to provide case management services in 2014 for youth who are at risk for involvement with violence. The Executive Committee is bringing 2 items related to our some bargaining unit contracts. One's with the trades, and the other collective bargaining is with AFSCME's attorney unit. The Public Safety and Civil Rights and Emergency Management Committee is bringing forward 203 items. First is a acceptance of grant funds for $30,000 from General Mills to support program costs related to community engagement, youth violence, education, and related policy. Second item is a acceptance of grant funds for $30,000 to support the position of community engagement coordinator and other project costs for the Joyce Foundation. And let's see, they are also bringing forward an item for training services for cadet recruit training, accepting a proposal from Hennepin Technical College. Transportation and Public Works Committee has 3 items. One is a contract amendment with MRI, a series of 3 low bids for various construction-related projects. And the final item from TPW will be a 2017 Transportation Alternatives Program TAP submission, authorizing submission of a series of applications for their Transportation Alternatives Program and MnDOT Safe Routes to School program, and authorizing commitment of some local funds per the federal requirement to support and maintain approved TAP projects. Are there any questions or any comments on those items? Councilmember Yang, yes.
Mr. Chair, consent item number 2. The Mazin. Years ago, I was sponsored on a naval fellowship from them, and so I don't know how we want to proceed with that, but I certainly didn't get this in advance, and so I wanted to point that out that I don't think there's a conflict of interest, but I certainly wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hanson, do we need to do anything with that item?
Mr. Chair, no. I don't believe so, but I defer to the city attorney. He could weigh in as
Mr.
well.
Ginder? All right. Good. Thank you for that notice. Any other questions? With that, I'd like to move the consent items for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Shame on you. Okay, nobody's opposed. Those items carry. I'm excited to go forward with our discussion item for the day. It is an item related to contract related to our Human Resources Information System, commonly known as HRIS. We're talking about executing necessary contract documents with Advanced Digital Systems for an upgrade to the HRIS system, and for that is not to exceed $350,000 and will include an option to renew for an additional year. And I think this is a significant enough item that we'd like to have a discussion, so I'm happy to have Mr. Dahl, if you'd like to bring us up to date.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of Ways and Means. Otto Dahl, Chief Information Officer for the City of Minneapolis. This is actually part of a somewhat larger arena of our enterprise resource planning, which is a suite of integrated applications that are used to automate our finance and human resource functions in the city. Specifically, what this particular contract action is directed at is looking at upgrading our human resources information system, or better known as HRIS. For instance, employees go to HRIS to put in their time forms and do other personnel actions. And in particular, the reason that we're going through this is, number one, we make use of a software product called PeopleSoft. The HR functionality in that software is at its end of life. It's actually on what is known as sustaining support, which means if we need any changes to that software by the vendor, we have to pay for it. And eventually that's the last step before they actually turn around and retire that software. So we need to move on to the upgraded version of that software. Obviously, not being on the upgraded software means the city is not able to take advantage of new functionality that's been put into that product release. And also, there are some deficiencies in the reporting arena, and particularly in analytics, et cetera, that the Human Resources Department is looking for. So what we perceive as benefits by going to the new release is obviously, number one, we're going to be up to date with the vendor, so we'll get full support as part of the product. There is a number of self-service functions in this release of the product that lets HRIS users, i.e. our employees, to do things themselves, do more things themselves. It'll improve our business processes today, and in particular, there's much more tighter integration between the HR world and our financial system, Compass, which will allow us to automate even more processes that currently are not automated. And finally, we get that reporting level that HR is looking for. Now, specifically, the challenge that we have is we have heavily modified the base PeopleSoft product to handle the many, many business rules that the city has relative to its HR matters. And because of that customization, every time we get an upgrade to the system, we in essence have to remodify that release to put in our changes that are not included in the base software to get it to be functioning the way that the city prefers the HRIS system to function. And so therefore, what we are looking through contract action, as you see before you, is bringing in consultants to help us actually with the modification of the upgraded software. In particular, we ran an RFP of which we had 24 vendors respond. We selected across 8 functional areas that we perceived we could use outside resources to help us with. And in particular, the action that you have before you is in the time and labor functional area. And we have actually been before committee prior to this for the contract itself, and we will be seeking in other areas in the future as those are needed for the various project phases that are yet to be completed on the project. Ultimately, the upgraded HRIS system is scheduled to go live in first quarter of 2015. So that's a general overview of our rationale behind bringing this forward to you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We're going to be executing this contract, but I wanted everybody to understand this is a certainly a more enterprise-wide step. And I know, Ms. Ferguson, I'm sure you've been deeply involved in this. Can you describe the 24 vendors and more specifically the vendor, how you arrived at this as your preferred vendor, that process?
Sure. Chairman Quincy, we went out into the marketplace. There's a lot of people that have PeopleSoft expertise in various areas. One can quite imagine that in the HR function, there are several functional arenas that the software deals with. And so we went out and evaluated the skill sets that companies could bring forward. Because again, what we're really looking for are professional services. These are actual people that will be taking our requirements and actually modifying the PeopleSoft software. So they need knowledge of the arena, the functional area that they're operating in. In this case, this was time and labor, and then also expertise in the PeopleSoft arena, because of what we're actually modifying towards is the actual PeopleSoft code as it's delivered in the product. So those were the two primary ingredients for evaluation of these various vendors. And so we went through an evaluation process that led us to 3 ultimate vendors out of the 24 to supply us with people.
Okay. Great. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if our speaker could elaborate on other HRIS upgrades that are coming down the pipeline, as this deals specifically with the time and labor functions, if there are other aspects of the PeopleSoft software in which we might see additional actions coming before the council.
Yes, Chairman Quincy, Councilman Johnson, This is actually an upgrade to the entire HRIS system, so it's more than just time and labor as a function. We also use PeopleSoft for our financial side, but that product is called Compass, and so there will be efforts towards upgrading Compass as well. But this is a full functional upgrade to the PeopleSoft HR side, and therefore handles the entire HR world. These sorts of upgrades usually come out every few years. They vary, even with the same vendor, varying their release dates. But this should keep us current for the next few years before they come out with a new release.
Good. I appreciate that question because I think it does point to the fact that HRIS is just part of what we're trying to do with the whole enterprise resource planning program. And I think what we're trying to do, and I really applaud the department and the way we're working within our departments to find out how to do it best. This is certainly something that we've expect to provide some better system support, functionality, and efficiencies for the city. And that's one reason why I think we led to our next kind of staff direction that I'll be adding as part of this action is a staff direction to, at the next cycle of the Committee of the Whole, not to mess with your agenda, but I'm thinking this is a large enough item that we'd love to talk about at the Committee of the Whole, that the IT, HR, and FPS departments, as directed, to present an overall program plan and update on the program to upgrade the city's enterprise resource planning system. This initial presentation should include a full resource plan as well as a timeline and program management structure, including a general description of the products within the ERP program. And the second portion is to have a status update on the ERP program presented at Committee of the Whole in 6 months or so. Any questions on that or any comments on the staff direction? Go ahead, Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Councilmember Quincy, and I just wanted to thank you and staff for helping to prepare this staff direction, which I think is really to give the council as a whole a better framework for understanding how major this project is, how important it is to the city enterprise, and for us also to have that touch base on implementation so that we understand how well, what are issues coming forward with the implementation of this work. And so anyway, I know sometimes this stuff doesn't sound so sexy, but it is critical to the workings of the city, and so thanks for putting this together.
It is. Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, this does put a marker in that we get to have a more fulsome discussion at the Committee of the Whole level, and then we're going to evaluate how we're doing in the next 6 months. So that's part of that staff direction. Any other questions or comments? Good. I'd like to move the recommendation on the agenda with the addition of the staff direction. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. And I think that concludes our business, Mr. Hanson. Thank you very much. We are concluded for the day. Thank you.